Hey guys, I love reading to the camera. Today I want to read this syllabus for a class I took. Um, is it dated? It's not dated. The year isn't on here, but I think it was 2014. Spring of 2014. And the class was called Listening. I took it at NYU, and the program I was in was called Performance Studies. And I also took a class the same semester called Spectatorship. So I would always joke about how I was in two classes, one about listening and one about looking. And it just turned out that the listening class was really compelling, although looking is interesting too. Listening was really great. So I thought I might as well just read the syllabus because I wanted to read it anyway, and it's hard for me to read if I'm not recording myself. So this was a class taught by Deborah Caption and Martin Daughtry on Tuesdays from 9:30 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. Amazing that I would wake up and get to class by 9:30 a.m. Wow. Okay. Philosophy course overview. Philosophy and social theory of the 20th century engaged the body and its sensorium in unprecedented ways, and yet the body remained largely silent until the end of the century when inquiry turned towards two topics, sound and affect. The co-emergence of these literatures is not pure coincidence. Sound and affect rewrite the body in similar ways. Both highlight ambiguity, fluidity, and ephemerality, characteristics of what Stephen Connor, 2004, calls immaterial corporeality. Both infiltrate, impact, and exceed the body, revealing it as a permeable zone, a receptive site emplaced within an intersubjective environment that is always already vibrating. Within the rich and growing body of scholarship on sound and affect, we, Deborah and Martin, have each been exploring in complementary ways the act of listening. We understand listening to be minimally a physiological process, a performative practice, an acoustomological act, i.e., a sound-centered act through which the world is known, a moment of affective capture, and a moment of temporary surrender, both to sounds and to the powers that course through them. Our recent explorations of literacies of listening, Caption 2009, and listening acts, Caption 2015, with Sufi communities as well as in audition, auditory regimes, and thanatisonics within the context of the Iraq War, Daughtry 2012, 2014, and 2015, have led us to the common set of questions and approaches regarding listening that form the basis for this course. Indeed, listening has taken on a great deal of responsibility of late. In the context of the rise of religiosities, it is cited as the first step in processes of conversion, Harding, 2000. It makes the subject vulnerable to an interlocutor, opening a space of intersubjectivity and empathetic religious response, Freikolm, 2004. Listening can render the self porous to other aesthetic and often spiritual influences, Lerman, 2012, and Taylor, 2010. Further, it can reform the acoustic unconscious, creating new religious sensibilities, Hirschkind, 2006, and Caption, 2010. Listening also has its role in non-religious world-making. It is foundational in the first awareness of self as sound, Nancy, 2007. Through echolocation, listening situates the body within a physical environment and in relation to other sonic agents that populate it. And just as it forms the self, listening can also deform it or affect its disintegration, sometimes violently, Cusick, 2008, and Daughtry, 2014. Listening, that is, can be instrumentalized to create community or to dissolve it. Our ears and skin and the other corporeal zones that are invigorated by sound are constant consumers, yet listening challenges the property principle, Caption: how can one own a vibration, a sound? Together with you, we will spend the semester exploring the dynamics, metaphysics, and limits of listening, focusing not on theoretical works, but on sound knowledge, the transmission of affect and insight that occurs through actual listening acts. To that end, we will begin each class with a structured listening act that performs the knowledge we will then theorize. We will, in this sense, engage with theories of listening and practices of listening, but we will do our best to blur the distinction. I remember in class, we would do a different kind of listening exercise right in the morning. This is really interesting because it wasn't just about like teaching theory, but also about like experiencing performances of listening and then talking about it. The requirements. Each week we will explore an acoustic territory and a different genre or genres of listening from multiple text and sense-based perspectives. Students should be willing to engage intellectually and bodily in the seminar, and we expect a thoughtful and original paper as well as a sound walk, installation, or other form of documentation of a situated listening practice. Each week, students will write astute commentary that engages with the assigned readings and or listenings and post these comments on NYU classes. Attendance and active participation are mandatory. I wrote my paper on music in the workplace. I was working retail at the time at Lush Cosmetics and oftentimes would be DJing or choosing the Spotify playlist, and every time something came up with the music, whether it was like a manager asking me to change the song or a song that really resonated with me, or I noticed a customer singing, I would like make little journal notes. I'm interested personally in like how pop music operates at work to kind of alleviate the suffering of the worker, but not without freeing them from the conditions of labor. Okay. I'm just going to keep reading. Tentative class schedule. Beginnings. Tuesday, January 27th. Audio normativity, intersensoriality, and the posthuman. Historicizing listening. Temporally situating listening. Acoustomology, culturally situating listening. And emplacement, spatially situating listening. Recommended literature. Anna Maria Occhia Gautier, Orality, Listening and Knowledge in 19th Century Colombia. Stephen Feld, Chapter in Press on Acoustomology. David Howes, The Empire of Senses, Introduction. Tuesday, February 3rd, Beyond a Phenomenology of Listening. Literature. Marlise Marlowe-Ponty, Phenomenology of Perception, the Body. Ponty, The Visible and the Invisible, the Intertwining, the chiasm. Jean-Luc Nancy, Listening, and Sarah Ahmed, Queer Phenomenology, Chapter 1. I highly recommend reading Sarah Ahmed, Queer Phenomenology. It is a book I've revisited and has always given me a really clear framework for understanding orientation. And also was recommended Quentin Melisseau, Beyond Finitude. Tuesday, February 10th, Interiors, Genres, Imagined Listening, Inner Listening, Oneiric Listening, Listening to Remembered Sound, Sounds that Happen in Your Head. Literature, Henry Bergson, Matter and Memory. Henry Bergson, Time and Free Will. Edward Casey, Imagining, a Phenomenological Study. Edward Casey, Remembering. Nicholas Cook, Imagining Listening. And recommended Thomas Cordis, Embodiment and Experience. Elizabeth Helmuth's Margulis, On Repeat, How Music Plays the Mind. And Oliver Sacks, Musical Hallucinations. February 17th, Erotics, Empathic Listening, Intracorporeal Listening, Intimate Listening, Skin Audition, Deaf Listening, Listening to Secrets, and Oneiric Listening. I'm not sure if I'm spelling that, or if I'm saying that right. Oneiric. Oneiric, which means relating to dreams. Literature was Didier Anzio, The Skin Ego, Stephen Connor, Edison's Teeth, Touching Hearing, Stephen Connor, The Book of Skins, Stefan Helmreich, Sound Studies Meets Deaf Studies, Sigmund Freud, Recommendation to Physicians Practicing Psychoanalysis, Audre Lorde, The Uses of the Erotic, and Stern Jonathan, The Auditory Past. There are also recommended readings called Flatus Voices, Semantic Winds, An Erotic Metaphysics of Hearing in Early Modern France, and Oral Sex, like Aural, The Female Orgasm in Popular Sound, which I remember reading and was good. Tuesday, February 14th, Affect and Viscosity, Genres, Deep Listening, Empathic Listening, Listening as Witness. Teresa Brennan, The Transmission of Affect, Brian Masumi, The Autonomy of Affect, Brian Masumi, Introduction, Concrete is as Concrete Doesn't, Pauline Oliveros, Deep Listening, and Deborah Caption, Body. March 3rd, Materiality, Acousmatic Listening, and Reduced Listening. We read Karen Barad, Posthumanist Performativity Toward an Understanding of How Matter Comes to Matter. Which I love Karen Barad. Casey O'Callaghan, Sounds and Events. Brian Kane, Sound Unseen, Acousmatic Sound in Theory and Practice. We also was recommended The Physics of Sound, Jonathan Ashmore's Hearing, and Helmholtz and the Modern Listener excerpts. Okay. And then Tuesday, March 10th, we enter the social, institutions and technologies, genres, reduced listening, osculation, and eavesdropping and surveillance. And we read Mara Mills, Do Signals Have Politics? Inscribing Abilities to Cochlear Implants, Don Ide, Post-Phenomenology and Technoscience, and Karen Bischerveld, Listening to Technology. And Richard Middleton, Faith, Hope, and the Hope of Love on the Fidelity of the Phonographic Voice. Then we had break, and then on Tuesday, March 24th, was Listening in the Polis, Ubiquitous Listening, Agnostic Listening, agnostic listening, and Listening to and for Difference. We read Certeau, The Practice of Everyday Life, Anahid Kasabian, Ubiquitous Listening, and Emily Thompson, The Soundscape of Modernity. And we were recommended many more, actually, for that week. And then on the 31st, there was Listening Through War, In Audition, Tactical Listening, Listening as Poesis, and Exposure. And we read Acoustic Territories, Sound Culture and Everyday Life. And then the teachers, Dautry's, The Amplitude of Violence, and Thanatasonics, Ontologies of Acoustic Violence. We learned about sonic war weapons. And then on April 7th, it was Listening to God and the Spirits, Deep Listening, Associative Listening, and Empathic Listening. And we read Teresa Brennan, 2004's The Transmission of Affect, Sandra Harding's The Book of Jerry Falwell, which I found really interesting. Like, the Book of Jerry Falwell is a very important text, in my opinion, for, like, especially, like, American studies. We read Charles Hirschkind, The Ethical Soundscape, Deborah Caption's Learning to Listen, The Sound of Sufism in France, of Sufism. Tanya Lorman's When God Talks Back. I also found that was a really important book about evangelicalism in the United States. And we read Eric Lee Schmidt's Hearing Things, Religion, Illusion, and the American Enlightenment. On the 14th, the topic was liquidity, listening to transduction, and we read Stefan Helmrich's Seashell Sound. I should reread that. Zygmunt Bauman's Liquid Modernity. And we recommended a film, Leviathan. And then we entered the third category called Ecologies. And on April 21st, it was called The Museum of Nature Species, and the genre was interspecies listening. And we read Karen Barad's Posthumanist Performativity again. And I really like Karen Barad's articulation of posthumanism. I think for me, that is the one that really guides my understanding of posthumanism and gets me like excited. And we also read Donna Haraway's The Cyborg Manifesto and Daniel Kamovitz' What a Plant Knows, A Field Guide to the Senses. And we read Marcel Dick, Behavioral and Community Ecology of Plants That Cry for Help. And then on Tuesday, April 28th, the theme was objects, and it was about interobjective listening, and we read Jane Bennett's Vibrant Matter and Tim Morton's Hyperobjects. These are also posthumanist theories about object-oriented ontology, which I was really interested in, and Hyperobjects had a huge effect on me, and I've read it multiple times, and Vibrant Matter complements Hyperobjects really well, and also Karen Barad's posthumanist performativity, and that left an impact on me. And then we shifted into the fourth territory, the cosmos, and on Tuesday, May 5th, we learned about outer space, silence, surveillance, searching, and transduction, and we read Stefan Helmrich's Extraterrestrial Relativism, and there were other things assigned that did not, or aren't on the syllabus. And then we had final presentations on May 12th. Oh, look, and then there is kind of like a bibliography at the end of the books that were on reserve at the library for us. All these great books. Yeah, that was the syllabus for that class. And I think I might have a notebook. I don't know if this is the notebook. I think it might be. I'd be interested in reading my notes from school to the camera too, but this video is just like reading a syllabus, basically recommending text if you're interested in the topic of listening and like a theoretical listening and like what listening does, really, like the performance of listening. Great. Well, thanks for watching. Bye.